Hey everyone. So, you know that feeling you get like time is just flying by faster and faster the older you get?
Yeah,
Well, a lot of you have sent in some fascinating stuff about this, like articles and personal stories, even some like philosophical ideas.
right.
It seems like you're all really trying to figure out why this happens, and we're going to dive in with you.
Yeah, it's really it's something that we all experience.
Right?
And I think it's really interesting that it's not just one simple answer. It really does seem like it's a combination of things, you know?
Right.
Our biology, our psychology, maybe even a little math.
Okay, well, let's start untangling all of that.
Mm.
One of the studies that was sent in really caught my eye. It talked about asking people of different ages to guess how long 3 minutes was.
Uh-huh.
And the older people kept guessing like they stopped the clock closer to 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Wow.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, it really shows how like our internal clocks can really change over time.
That's really interesting because it's not just a feeling, there's actually science behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Like Adrian Bijan, he's a researcher, has been studying this, how our brains actually process information differently as we age.
Okay.
And he thinks there's like a direct connection between how fast our brains process information and how we feel time.
So our brains are like literally slowing down. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of. It's like, imagine all those memories you have from when you were a kid, right? They're like this high definition movie. You remember all the details.
Mm-hmm.
But as we get older, it's like the resolution of our memories drops. You know, we still kind of remember those things, but the little details start to fade.
Yeah.
Bejan, he uses this analogy of a flip book.
Okay.
You know those things where you flip through and it looks like a little movie?
Yeah.
Well, if you flip through it really fast, it seems like the movie speeds up, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like the fewer pictures in the flip book, the faster it seems to go.
Got it.
Our brains are kind of like that.
So you're saying our brains are taking fewer snapshots or something as we get older?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why it seems like time goes by faster.
So that's why when you were a kid, it felt like summer would never end.
Exactly.
Christmas took forever to come.
Exactly.
Now it's like, boom, another year gone.
Because when we were young, our brains, they were seeing everything new for the first time, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, boom, 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 taking all these high definition pictures constantly.
So it was like our brain was working harder then, you know,
Absolutely.
to capture all that.
Exactly.
But then as we get older and we've seen more things, it's not so new and exciting anymore.
Exactly. And then there's this other piece of the puzzle,
Okay.
this thing called dopamine.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So dopamine, it's all about like rewards and pleasure, and especially when you do something new. And as we get older, the dopamine levels, they just naturally go down,
Okay.
which, you know, maybe that adds to this feeling of time speeding up.
Whoa. So trying new things, like
Like-
that excitement I get when I try a new restaurant or something,
Hmm.
that's actually tied to how I feel time passing.
That's right.
Wow. That's crazy.
But you know, this is good news in a way.
How so?
Well, now that we know this, we can actually try to change it, right?
You mean like we can slow down time?
Well, kind of. If we do things that are new and exciting, things we've never done before, learn new skills, it can actually trick our brains.
Into thinking we're younger.
No, not exactly younger.
Okay.
But our brains might start recording in higher definition again, you know?
Nah.
So instead of just complaining that time's flying by, we can actually do something about it.
Exactly.
I like that.
It doesn't have to be crazy stuff either. Just little changes can make a difference, like trying a new recipe or, like you said, a new restaurant.
Right.
Even just taking a different way to work.
Okay, that's actually doable. I like this. Okay, so before we get too excited about shaking up our routines, you mentioned something else, this log time theory. What's that all about? Oh, right. So think about when you were a kid, a whole year felt like forever, right?
Yeah.
Like a huge chunk of your life. But now a year, it just zooms by.
Right.
It feels so much shorter.
It does.
So that's kind of the idea behind log time, like the same amount of actual time. It feels different to us depending on how old we are.
Okay, so that makes sense. Like when I was 10, a year felt like an eternity. Now it's nothing.
Right.
But how does this log time thing connect to all that stuff about novelty and dopamine and all that?
Well, one of the articles he sent, it talked about how this person was renovating their house, and it took 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they said it felt like the longest 5 months of their life.
Because it was so much work.
Well, yeah, but also because every day was something new, you know? They were learning all this stuff, figuring things out, facing all these challenges. So it was like their brain was just like super focused, taking in all this new information and stuff.
So those 5 months felt way longer looking back because their brain was like in overdrive the whole time.
Exactly. And doesn't that sound familiar? Like, haven't you had an experience like that where you were learning something new and it felt like those hours or days just stretched on forever?
You know, it's funny you should say that. When I was first learning how to code, I would stay up late just like poring over these tutorials and trying to figure out why my code wasn't working.
Right.
And those nights felt like they would never end.
Yeah.
But when I think about it now, it's amazing how much I learned in such a short amount of time.
It's like I said before about our brains taking those snapshots. Right when we're learning something new, our brains are like, whoa, this is important. We better remember all this. And so they take way more of those mental pictures.
Okay, so it's not like we have to go skydiving or something to slow down time.
Right.
Even just learning a new language or picking up a new hobby could make a difference.
Exactly. It's not just about the experience itself, but about those memories we're making. They
Mhm.
become part of who we are and how we see our lives.
You know, this is making me think about time completely differently. I've been so worried about how fast it's going that I haven't really thought about how I'm actually spending it.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that, especially with how busy everything is these days. But what if instead of just worrying about time flying by, we thought about how to make our experiences really count, make them really meaningful?
Well, one of the things that came up in the stuff you sent was this idea of mindfulness.
Oh, yeah, mindfulness.
Everyone seems to be talking about it, but I never really thought about it being connected to like how we see time.
It's an interesting connection, right? One of the articles said that mindfulness could be a really powerful way to slow down time.
Wait, really? How does that work? Do we like meditate and suddenly time moves slower or something?
No, it's not like actually slowing down time itself, but it's more about shifting how we pay attention.
What do you mean?
Well, instead of always thinking about the future or dwelling on the past, mindfulness is about bringing your attention to what's happening right now in this moment.
Oh, so like instead of worrying about that deadline or thinking about that embarrassing thing I did last week, I just focus on what I'm doing right now.
Exactly. It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings and everything you're sensing in this very moment without judging yourself.
Okay.
And the more we practice doing that, the more we start to see all the little details that we usually miss when we're rushing around.
So it's like hitting the pause button on life for a minute.
Yeah, kind of. And the best part is you don't need anything special to do it. You can practice mindfulness anywhere, anytime, like when you're eating or taking a walk or even just talking to someone.
It sounds easy, but I bet it's hard to actually, like to stop my mind from racing all the time.
It definitely takes practice, but even just a few minutes of mindfulness can make a difference. One article said that even just taking a few deep breaths and really paying attention to how your body feels can help bring you back to the present moment.
So you don't have to be like a meditation guru to do it.
Not at all. It's just about taking those little breaks to connect with your experience.
And over time, those little breaks can add up and actually change how we see time.
Exactly. We might start to feel like our days are longer even if we're doing the same amount of stuff.
It's like instead of being on that treadmill of life, we're actually enjoying the scenery for once.
That's a great way to put it. And it reminds me of another really interesting point that came up in what you sent.
It almost seems like the way we live now, with everything being so fast-paced and always being connected online, like maybe that has something to do with time feeling faster.
You might be onto something there. One of the articles you sent talked about exactly that, how all the information and notifications and deadlines we have now, it actually makes it harder for our brains to make those strong memories that make time feel longer.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mhm.
If our brains are always trying to keep up with everything, it's like there's no time left over to actually process what's happening.
Right. It's like we're trying to drink from a fire hose of information.
Exactly. And if we're always focused on the next thing, then we don't have time to really appreciate what's happening right now.
And that can make it feel like every day is the same, just blurring together. We're so busy checking things off our to-do lists that we forget to actually enjoy what we're doing.
It's like we're trading quality for quantity.
Right. We're trying to do so many things that we don't have time to really experience any of them.
This makes me think about those cultures where they seem to have a much slower pace of life. Where people take time to enjoy their meals and really connect with each other.
Absolutely. Those cultures, they have these rituals that are all about slowing down and appreciating the little things.
Like what?
Well, like afternoon tea in England or fika in Sweden. It's like they have these built-in breaks that remind them to stop and enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I like that those are like speed bumps for life.
Exactly. And it's something we can all learn from. We don't have to give up our phones or move to a different country, but we can make choices to add those pauses into our own lives.
So instead of letting our phones control us, we can choose to spend time doing things that make us feel more grounded and present.
That's the idea. Whether it's spending time in nature or working on a hobby or just having a good conversation with someone face to face.
So it all comes back to that mindfulness thing, huh?
In a way, yeah, one of the articles even said that practicing mindfulness for even just a few minutes a day can change how we experience time.
I still don't get how that works. Though, does meditation like magically slow down our internal clocks or something?
It's not really about slowing down time itself, but about paying attention to it differently.
Hmm.
Mindfulness helps us focus on what's happening right now instead of getting lost on our thoughts about the past or the future.
So it's like we're training our brains to be more aware of time passing.
Right. And when we're more aware of time, we're also more likely to appreciate it and to use it in ways that make us feel good.
This has been so insightful. We've talked about so many different things, our brains, dopamine, mindfulness, even how our culture affects how we experience time.
And it all started with your curiosity and those articles and stories you sent in. It's amazing how much we can learn when we take the time to really explore something.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to try some of these things out. Maybe I'll finally try that meditation app or take a pottery class.
That's great. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Maybe it's just taking 5 minutes every morning to enjoy your coffee without looking at your phone or taking a walk in the park without any distractions.
It's all about making time for the things that matter most.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one last question. Knowing what we know now about why time seems to speed up as we get older, what can you do today to make time feel a little less fleeting?
That's a great question for all of us to think about. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of time and perception. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making every moment count.